Hello and welcome to the morning sports briefing on the 2nd of May here on New Zealand Sport Radio at 8 a.m. every morning. You can join us for this sports update. And in the news today, the Premiership meet to discuss steps forward. New Zealand football kicks off a review. Scott Morrison shuts down on Warriors. Everybody seems to be talking about how to resume rugby and a massive financial impact on New Zealand tennis. Kicking off with the football, and let's start off with our favourite league in the world, the Belarusian League. And overnight, we had Smolovic lose to Energix 0-2, meaning that Energix climb up to third in the table, with Smolovic down in second to last place in 15th. It's no surprise that result. Tonight, overnight, we have Minsk against Torpedo, who are obviously the team from Steve, or the team supported by Steve in the Deep South. Rue Brest will take on Gorodea, which is Stephen from the Far North's team. And finally, Dynamo Minsk will take on Slutsk, which is my team. Slutsk, who are top of the table currently. So those are your games overnight tonight. And obviously, we'll keep you up to date on all of those results. And at the end on Monday, we'll give you a league table to show you where everything stands there. Going over to Premier League football in England. And the clubs there have been told they will need up to 10 stadiums to resume their season to try and complete their nice two outstanding games. So it looks like they're going to play in neutral venues rather than have all the venues opened up. And obviously all these games will be behind closed doors. This is off the back of the players yesterday coming out saying that they are scared about resuming, and the day before when FIFA's medical officer said that seasons should be cancelled. But Project Restart is still on the go. No decisions have been taken today, is what they've said, but they are looking at trying to get going when and in quotes, when safe and appropriate to do so. Kind of who decides that, we'll have to wait and see. Over in Ligue 1 in France, Paris Saint-Germain has been awarded the title since the French president cancelled all gatherings and all sport, and so their season has been officially cancelled now. We will see. That means that Ains and Toulouse are going to get relegated from Ligue 1 to go down. Lyon, who were fifth a week before the last day of the season, but finished seventh, might appeal against the verdict. They have said because it obviously the teams get paid, get prize money depending on where they finish in the table. So they might be looking at challenging this. We'll see how that all pans out. So over in New Zealand, and New Zealand football is conducting a wide-ranging review. Obviously, there is the financial impact of the virus, not only, and as you'll hear later, not only in their own funding, but also in the funding they get from the TAB. And we'll go through that later. Maybe because the Belarusian League has kept going, that football won't be quite as impacted as tennis has been. But they a bit like rugby. They're looking at doing a full review as to how they can sustainably keep football going. Yesterday we told you how the All Whites head coach is taking over the under-23s for the Olympics. He sees that as a good thing because he says, look, a lot of the All Whites are already young players, and there's a big crossover between the two teams, and hence why that'll be a good thing. Obviously, he feels sorry for the manager who has had to who's been stood down. That gets you up to date on all of your football news. I'm going to hand you over now to Stephen from the Far North, who's going to take us through our birthdays.
Yes, good morning, Paul, and good morning, everybody out there. It's another beautiful day in Auckland, a great day to celebrate a birthday. In those birthdays today, another Auckland Grammar School All Black, a Hamilton-born cyclist. And finally, from Warriors reserve grade to Rugby League World Cup, That's where we start. James Bell is an international rugby league footballer who has represented Scotland. He plays as a second row and loose forward for Toulouse Olympique in the Betfred Championship. After making over 50 appearances for the Warriors reserve grade team, Bell made his NRL debut for the Warriors against Cronulla Sutherland Sharks in 2017 NRL season. Later that year, Bell was named in the Scotland squad for the 2017 Rugby League World Cup. James Tamanawanui Temuera Bell, born this day, the 2nd of May 1994 in Auckland. James is 26 today. Moving on, Patrick Bevan is a New Zealand professional road racing cyclist who currently rides for UCI Team World. Bevan started his career riding for the New Zealand Bika Veda team in 2009. He has since racked up an outstanding career cycling for 5 different teams over his career thus far. Bissell, Search 2, Retain Health.com.au, Avanti Racing Team, Cannondale, BMC Racing Team. Patrick Paddy Bevan, born this day, the 15th of February. Actually, that's not quite right, is it? It's definitely not the 15th of February, Paul. It's the 2nd of May, 1991 in Hamilton. Patrick is 29 today. A little bit of proofreading might help one. Now, finally, on to John Fleming, who is a former New Zealand Rugby Union player. A lock, Fleming represented Wellington and Waikato at provincial level and was a member of the New Zealand national side, the All Blacks, from 1978 to 1980. He played 35 matches for the All Blacks, including 5 international. John Kingsley Fleming, born this day, the 2nd of May, 1953 in Auckland. John is 67 today. And that's our birthdays for today, Paul.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And as I say, as you said, yeah, blame the writers, the proofreaders, and the editors behind the scenes. They're the ones that have the problem, not us presenters. We get it perfect every single time, as you will see. And in rugby news, then the Wallabies and the All Blacks are set to hold talks about the resumption of rugby and the future of rugby. This has been arranged between the 2 players' associations. Now, we talked about the Super Rugby review that is taking place in New Zealand, and we pointed out yesterday that the players are not involved, or not one of the parties involved in that. So it looks like the players have taken things into their own hands and decided to have talks between themselves about the future of rugby. We'll see what comes out of that. Also, there have been news in how that New Zealand rugby might resume. We've all expected it to be the 5 new Super Rugby franchises playing each other over 10 weeks, followed by the Mitre 10 Cup from a men's point of view. And they're looking at still getting the Farah Palmer Cup up and running from the women's point of view. But what looks like possibilities are that it could turn into an 8-team competition, adding 2 other franchises in New Zealand, plus perhaps a Pacific Island side. Now, whether that would be this year or a future year, that is one of the options that has been mooted. There's also talk of playing with a number of teams from Australia, preferably, obviously, the Eastern Coast teams as well from a time zone point of view. And there's also talk now of an All Blacks trial match between the Super Rugby and the Mitre 10 Cup. Now, there was lots of talk, also things of trying to resurrect things like North versus South and all those sort of historical games, how that trial match will go. Will it be a North versus South, or will it be a probables versus possibles? We'll have to wait and see, even if it does go ahead. But it would give Ian Foster some time with his players that he's not going to have otherwise this year. So all those things up in the air. We'll have to wait for official news as to how it's actually going to land and how the season will go ahead. That gets you up to date with all the rugby news. I'm going to hand you over to Stephen now for our league update.
Good morning again, Paul. I tell you what, if ever there was an opportunity for a mini-series about how the NRL tried to restart during COVID lockdown, this is the opportunity. I'm not too sure who you'd look at to play Peter V'landys, but at this present time, V'landys must be just absolutely shaking his head, because Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison Morrison has denied reports that the Warriors have been given permission to fly to Australia for the resumption of the NRL season. Earlier, several Australian media outlets reported that the Australian National Cabinet gave the green light for Tamworth, a city in the northeast of New South Wales, to open its airport so the Warriors can fly from New Zealand to take part in the NRL season. However, Morrison confirmed that no decision has been made about the NRL's application for the Warriors to quarantine in Tamworth. The application is still being processed by the Australian Border Force, he said. The National Cabinet has not provided that endorsement. According to Morrison, the individual jurisdictions will ultimately provide any of the clearances that are necessarily on a health basis. In relation to border issues with New Zealand, well, that authority has not been provided. And no amount of reporting will change those restrictions. The Warriors plan to leave for Australia on a charter flight tomorrow and will need to quarantine for 14 days after arriving in Australia, per the strict isolation measures in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Yesterday, it was revealed several senior Warriors players spoke up about not flying to Australia until they had assurances from the NRL about wages and other specifics pertaining to their travel. The Warriors still hope to leave to Australia this Sunday, despite needing some final answers to key questions. Interesting things or interesting happenings right there. But I'll tell you what, Craig Bellamy, who's known for the odd spray, especially in and around playing time, has pretty much come out and said, unless with one of his trademark sprays, this time at his players. The Daily Telegraph reports Bellamy set up a Zoom meeting with his players this week and used it to slam his players over their social media use. He even went a step further and banned all social media use once training starts on Monday. There's a few of you guys who are out of control with social media, Bellamy told the players. All social media will now be handled directly through the club, according to the report. Bellamy's blast comes after star winger Josh Adokar posted photos on the social media of a hunting trip with South Sydney fullback Latrell Mitchell, which saw both players fined $50,000 for breaching social distancing. Penrith Panthers playmaker Nathan Cleary was also fined $10,000 after appearing in an Instagram photo with at least 5 women on Anzac Day. It is forbidden in New South Wales to gather in groups of more than 2 people you don't live with. Cleary and the women in the photos were not staying within 1.5 metres away from each other as required. Under New South Wales guidelines, people can leave their house only for work, essential shopping, exercise, medical appointments, and compassionate visits. Cleary was later seen dancing with a group of women in a now deleted pair of TikTok videos on the same weekend. He was photographed for breaking social distancing rules. Pretty much. I'll tell you what, I'm going to wrap it up there because it's pretty much of a muchness. But the NRL confirmed to Fox Sports Australia that the integrity unit is reviewing all of these videos. It really comes down to the end of the day, Paul. If they didn't post these videos, nobody would have actually ever known. And that's League News this morning.
Well, yes, it does seem to be League's answer to this is, guys, don't tell people what you're doing rather than actually behave yourselves, which is a strange one, but there you go. Yes, don't use social media to tell people what you're doing because we know you can't behave. Come on, boys. How about just behaving? Then you wouldn't matter what you put out on social media. Thank you for that update, Stephen. Moving on then, Formula One has decided that they're going to have bio bubbles around their races. We've been talking about them having some sort of isolation of how they could fly in together and not actually interact with anybody locally. We announced that, we told you the other day that they are going to be starting off in Austria with 2 races, followed by Silverstone with 2 races. The reason they've chosen Austria is because there's an airport right next to the racetrack, which means they can all fly in on their private jets. And also that does mean that it's also not near any big cities, so hence that's a good venue for them. Silverstone again is not near London really, and is in the countryside. So both of those, you can understand why those two venues have been chosen. Apparently reports of motorhomes and them all sort of sleeping at the grounds is not true. They're not going to go that far, but full catering, etc., will be laid on while they're at the circuit. The next venues after that are reportedly going to be Spain and Hungary. This is where they're looking next for those races. Now, again, whether those will be double weekends or single weekends, we've yet to hear, but clearly they are working on that. Moving on to NRL news, and the Northern Territory has offered up to host AFL games with crowds. So the assumption had been that we were obviously going to be playing, that sport would be returning without crowds, but Northern Territory, which says they've had basically very few, if any, cases, or very few cases, with just 28 confirmed cases, that actually they could host it with crowds as well. This is one of the areas that AFL have been discussing with, but this news of crowds is news to them, or was news to them yesterday. We'll have to see where AFL decides and how they decide to return. As Hugh says in the live chat, social distancing restrictions are being heavily relaxed in Northern Territory as well. The moving on to tennis news, and Tennis New Zealand is having a very large drop in its income. Last year, it received $1.5 million from the TAB, and with the with all tennis banned globally, there is no betting going on these tennis tournaments currently, and hence that income for New Zealand tennis is going to pretty much disappear, and that's a massive and a very large hole in their budget. It's one of as 45% of their money or their income comes from the TAB. So a big issues for tennis to sort out. And one of the things that Andy Murray recently said was he expects tennis to be one of the last sports to restart, because they are traveling from all over the world into one place and then travel off to another place. And that is clearly, clearly you're therefore providing potential carriers for disease by doing that. And people could bring it together and then take it off to many places. So it's a difficult sport for them to restart. Andy Murray also won the Virtual Madrid Open and winning the men's title, and he gave half the winnings to the NHS in the UK. Funds will also be heading down to the lower ranked players who obviously, if you don't play, you don't earn any money, and that's a big problem for them. The same happens in tennis in New Zealand as well. If you're not playing, you don't earn money, as they're all individual contractors. So that is a big issue for the lower ranked players. Kiki Bertens won the women's title there. In the last live chat, Charlie has asked about our take on Beaumont versus Pichot. If you go over to drivingmaul.com, you'll see I put up a video saying how the voting is going and why each side has voted that way. So if you'd like an update on that, head over to drivingmaul.com. It is behind a paywall. That paywall is only is as much as you want to pay, from as low as $1 a month. So if you want to have an update on how that is going, then please head over to drivingmaul.com. We talked about the All Whites, golf, and the #1 golf course in New Zealand has been announced, and it is in Northland. Tara Iti has achieved that, been named that again. Unsurprising, really, when you consider that it's been named as the second best golf course in the world outside of the USA, which obviously is a very congratulations to them, very, very prestigious result. Royal County Down in Northern Ireland is the top course in the world. And when you look and think that it was one from Australia and one in South Korea, and all the rest are from Europe. So only 3 of them outside of Europe, and New Zealand comes second. So it must be a wonderful golf course up there. So if you get the opportunity, do go and play it if you can. Obviously, once lockdown has finished, the top 40 courses have been announced over. And if you head over to Stuff, you can see that, the full list, if you're looking for a good golf course to go and play in. That brings you up to date with all the important sports news around the world. You have got the start of your day the best way possible. Don't forget, we are here at 8 a.m. every morning, so please do like and follow on our Facebook page. Also, if you want to listen to it while you're walking around, you can search for New Zealand Sports Radio on all your favourite podcatchers. We're on Spotify, we're on iHeartRadio, we're on iTunes. So if you want to listen on the go, you can download the podcast as well. Thank you very much, Stephen, for joining me. And you have a resplendent set of jerseys behind you there. Is that a Maori All Blacks one in the middle?
Yeah, I popped in the New Zealand Māori All Blacks Sevens jersey. That's the jersey in the side. The green one out to my that side. It looks like my right on your screen, but it's actually my left. How weird is that? So it obviously reverses. That's the Blues training jersey, which is the green one out to that side. And of course, we've got the Harbour one on the other side. But don't forget, if you are watching this program and you want to promote your club, reach out to me. Tell me a little bit about the club, and we can highlight your jersey. And unlike what Paul said yesterday, I will get that shirt back to you. That sports shirt, I will send it back in the mail to you. But it'd be a fantastic opportunity during this lockdown to highlight your particular club. Tell us a little bit about it, and we'll have a bit of a spiel. Maybe there's a bit of history attached, and also a good way to keep reaching out to your members of your club. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much, Stephen, and thank you very much everyone who has watched, followed, etc. We've been going for about a month now, and it's been wonderful, the response we have got from you. Don't forget, we do have already a rugby show at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday night, the quiz on 8 p.m. on a Wednesday night, a cricket show at 8 p.m. on a Thursday night, plus Monday to Friday at 2 p.m. we have long interviews with athletes, coaches, administrators, and other people who are involved in the sporting industry. So all those shows coming. We have 4 other series of shows in the works coming to you soon. So subscribe and follow and tell all your friends.